Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues episode 78. Somebody has been fined for bringing hognose snakes into the state of Vermont. Now, these are snakes that are like found in Connecticut and points south, so maybe not the most invasive that they could be. In our harsh winters, like unless we have a really mild winter, any invasive species from points south, they're not going to survive it. It's like we don't worry about having fire ants. I think even as far down as like Virginia, they don't really have fire ants. Killer bees, they don't really go further than I think Maryland or something. It's just too brutal. Even with, you know, global warming so-called and some mild winters, we still occasionally have a polar vortex that opens up at, 30 below zero. I don't think that they would make it. Maybe if they were in a man-made structure, like they were under somebody's foundation, a few of them would live. So it's not necessarily the worst thing that could happen, having, somebody bring in something invasive. Like, I think the state some time ago brought in some sort of beetle, if I remember correctly, when we had that purple loosestrife started moving into the swamps. They're like, oh no, it's destroying ecosystems. So the state actually brought in an invasive species, technically, that ate it. And I think that played havoc too. And this is sort of the way that things go. It's not exactly a Florida situation where you've got, oh yeah, someone's chimps got loose. Now we've got a dozen chimpanzees in the woods, and there might be an orangutan out there. There are certainly certain types of monkeys that aren't native to Florida that now have naturalized there. Boa constrictors, and apparently, at least the tales apparently were true. At least temporarily, there were king cobras living in southern Florida. There probably are still a few there. They're just waiting to have their next population boom or something. The rat population rose, and the cobras came, and now Florida will never escape from the king cobra again. So it's not like a melting pot of multicultural species like Florida, because our weather is a little bit different. I suppose you could have invasive species from, like, I don't know, the tag of central Siberia or someplace like that in northern Europe, maybe Finland or something. Tropical species or even kind of warmer temperate species won't make it. But it's still a bad idea. The real worry is usually insectoid in form. That somebody's going to bring some insect species. I think the pine boring beetle, which actually I've seen a few of. Thankfully, not so many in my lifetime. Was a huge worry for a while. They thought it was going to basically, destroy all the white pines in the state. And I think some of that was slightly overblown. I think in the end their population stabilized because they became part of the more or less so-called natural habitat. But sometimes species come in that simply weren't there before because of human travel, and at other times you have somebody who does it on purpose, and that's when you have a real problem. We also have I think it's called hogweed or something like that. It's got a big long stem, big puffy flowers, very showy. It was popular in Victorian gardens. And unfortunately, some people that were gardening in it got loose into certain waterways, actually. I've seen it around. They've tried to get rid of it to no great success. It's still there. At this point, it's basically a naturalized species. So I'd be more worried about plants or insects, maybe some fungal species that kills off some animal population or some other plant or something. Now, I'd be more worried about that than a handful of snakes that probably can't survive our winters anyway. I'm not sure I even would have fined the dude. I would have said, okay, well, this is a problem. You're going to have to scoop these fucking snakes up, put them back in their tank, and bring them back to where they belong. I'm not sure exactly why he chose to bring them into the state. Maybe if you had some, like, potential poisonous snake that could actually survive the climate, that would be worse. But we're not exactly going to have cobras in Vermont unless they're in a cage, a very well-warmed cage. I think they have a boa constrictor at the Montshire Museum, which I think is on the other side of the state, closer to like the Quechee area. And it's a cool museum, but they've got a couple of exotic snakes, and they've got like a leafcutter ant colony, which is actually legendary. I saw the queen once, but nobody will believe me. Like, nobody else at the time saw it because they had wandered off to look at other stuff, and I quite clearly saw it. And I'm like, oh, look, it's the queen. It looks exactly like the little illustration that they have. And I knew that I liked ants a lot, so I knew the difference between that and just a big drone or a soldier ant. Nobody believed me, and so I don't think they marked it down as the queen was sighted on that day, which was sad. It really, really disappointed young ant-loving me. So I'll have a stick up my ass about that forever. Also, one of the ants somehow like got out. Like occasionally there were leaks, and so I got bitten by a leafcutter ant. Actually, it hurt a lot because their jaws are made specifically to slice through things, so it can easily slice through the outer layers of your skin into the flesh underneath. It's not pleasant. I wouldn't want to step on one of their ant hills out in their natural habitat, far, far away from society. That's about all. Peace out.